I just start laughing. We're here having a proper adult conversation and we go live and then next minute I'm just laughing.
Because it's time to do the thing.
It's like
We
this is
are,
inappropriate. I'm the
yeah.
one that laughs at a funeral as well. Like, yeah, I'm that guy. Anyway,
Oh,
hi.
well, I hope a bunch of people do that at mine. Um, Laughing with me, not at me. So yes, so here we are live in Circle Leadership headquarters across Australia, across the world. I'm really excited for today's live stream. I think I told you that yesterday.
You did. You were pumped.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite subjects or topics, if you want. This is one of the things that I love um, challenging leaders on in terms of how they structure their organization. We can talk about all this sort of cool thing about coaching, not bossing, and setting objectives instead of goals, and all that stuff, that awesome stuff that we do. But I guess if you don't have your organization set up in the right way, like if you set your organized or flip it over, if you set your organization up in the right way, it all flows better. Right. And so to me, and I think that's why, and also just because it's the way I've worked for the past 20 years, I guess it's just, so it just makes sense to me. And the other way we used to work, well, the traditional stuff we'll go through today just never jived with me, even when I was in the system. So
Taki said something really interesting yesterday. I'm just grabbing my book. I don't know if you guys jumped and saw Dave's stories on Instagram. We've just been in a really awesome, intensive professional development space for the last 3 days. It's been wicked with the Black Belt crew. I'm just having a look at my notes. And I don't know if it's Taki or Carrie or someone said freestyle in a framework. Having a framework in which to ad lib or riff inside of that's where the magic happens. So yeah, I'm really pumped about today as well.
Yeah, well, so that's an awesome comment when you think about ecosystems and ecosystems, which we're going to talk about today. It's hard to freestyle in a framework where it's linear, right? So it's going to be awesome to discuss that. So I guess the first thing I want to talk about, and I'm going to do a little bit of whiteboarding in a moment. Let's do it quick. Can we just do a little prayer to the technology gods? Please work today. Because actually, when I signed into the live stream, it said we're experiencing heavier traffic than normal, so please don't go live for the next 30 or 60 seconds. I'm like, okay, so ecosystems. So traditionally, and you through your vast experience in business as well, Lisa, have experienced this, where we've grown up in organizations where there's a hierarchy of sorts, right? So there's the boss at the top. And then there's, the next layer, and then all the reporting structures, and they go down and down and down and down. Now, and that's the way most organizations are built. Now, in the last probably decade, there's been things like holacracy that have been introduced, which is what Zappos famously brought into their organization. Tony Hsieh, when he was around, he wanted to remove managers and stuff like that from the organization. And it was funny because it just totally stripped the whole system away, but then brought in this other regiment of rules and stuff. Because there was no management or leadership or whatever within the organization. And it's a great case study to look at. But it's almost like leans so far to one side that people weren't able to jive in it fully. And I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe that they've sort of come back a little bit, which is interesting. And then there's people who've been trying to flatten the organizational structure, let's just get more people reporting to less people. Right. So, which is fine. And then so everything can move around. There's a big layer in the organization and remove layers of management and leadership and stuff like that. And then there's modern day organizations that like WD-40 and our good friend Gary Ridge, who's just stepped down, by the way, and new chairperson, new CEO taking over. Yeah. So Gary's moving on to bigger things. Can he get bigger than that? No. Yeah. So excited for him. But that aside, but they don't even have leaders or managers. They have coaches running their teams, right? So each team has a coach. And so when you think about that, but you also still have to have a framework, and they use tribes. So they have a coach leading their tribe. Okay. And if you go back into history of all the indigenous cultures and that, they had tribal circles. And they would have either a talking circle or a conflict circle, and where they would all sit around in a circle and they would then discuss things so everyone could face each other, which built kind of like, the circle of trust. Anyone remember Meet the Fockers? Well, here's the circle of trust, and here's you. in the circle of trust. So they did that so they could actually, and they resolve conflicts that way too, face to face, so everyone would be able to see each other, right? So when you think about that, there and in the now of work, or what was deemed the future of work, there was a challenge to be, one of the things that they said is we need to find new organizational models. We need to find new ways to structure organizations. And for me, like, this is something that I wrote in plug simplified. Well, there was a whole chapter on circle of organizational leadership. So if you want this for a low cost of $29.95, or I don't know what it is, I don't even know what it sells for, leading structure for leading teams, it's in the chapter in the book there. But I go through this in more detail. So if anybody would like more detail, you can go to leadershipissimple.com and order the book. Or you can just message us and we'll send you a PDF that'll explain it all anyway. Totally up to you. But when you look at the way organizations have been in the past to where they are, what the future was demanding, I guess, is moving away from that old model to a new model. And one of my favorite quotes of all time is Buckminster Fuller, and he talks about that if you want things to change, right? Basically, I'll shorten the quote, but if you want things to change, create a new model that makes the old model obsolete. Don't try and tweak the existing model. So what we've been doing with the hierarchies and flattening them and doing all this stuff is just trying to tweak the existing model. All right. Instead of that, he said, why don't you create a new model that makes the old model obsolete? And so when I sat down, I think it would have been 2001 with Tim Gleason from back at the time, his business was LTL Expedited Air, a third-party logistics company. And their business existed still does to an extent because he's still in logistics, to create the smartest distance between 2 points. And we got that sense of purpose like that. And I said, he said, how do I get my team and everything all working around this? And we said working around this. So I drew out this little circle and I put the purpose there and I wrote his values there. And I said, we need to make sure that every single person in your team has a direct line of sight to the customer-centric purpose through the lens of the values. And that this way, we can bring all these really great ideas to the table because everyone's thinking through the lens of the values to the purpose. So we're all thinking about why we're here and how we think about that, and we're making all our decisions and all that through that lens. And so that's why, and that was the very beginning of what is now, there's behind me actually, the Circle of Organizational Leadership. So that was the whole thing. Actually, that was that wasn't the original drawing, but it was one of the drawings. And so we had it. So there was creating the smartest distance between 2 points and all his values. And there's Tim, and there was Jen, there was Aaron, there was Stacy, there was a whole bunch. And so all of them, I even remember most of their names. This is going back to 2001. Hey, it's not bad. And making sure every single one of them had a direct line of sight to the purpose. And in the structure, which we're going to look at both in a moment. But what we did is made sure that nobody was above the purpose. And in an organization, this is really important to understand, nobody was above the values or the purpose in this sense. And everyone had a direct line of sight to it. So all decisions, all thoughts, all processes, all objectives, all goals, everything they were working on were through that lens. Right now, I'll explain why this is really important once I flip to the whiteboard in a moment. And it was really cool. But then they could all sit around here and create a sense of trust, because values is the system we use to create a system of shared values to create trust. To give and trust is the key to responsibility. Responsibility gives people freedom to think. Freedom to think is what drives creativity, and creativity is what drives innovation. So all of a sudden now we can have all these great ideas. So it's not the boss's idea that wins, it's the best idea that wins. And everybody answers to something, not to someone first. So that's when the I guess the birth of the whole Circle of Organizational Leadership concept came into play, and that was 2001. So let's see if we can switch to the. We should stop calling it the whiteboard. We need to call it like the Davistrator or something, like like when they have on sports they have the coach and they go, let's just switch to the thing and then show you the play. And
I hear you, I feel you, but we're not calling it the Davistrator. That's not what we're going to be calling it.
Damn.
We'll come up with that for next strong.
Okay, let's bring it in here. All right. So here in traditional organizational structures, I'm hoping this will work here. Okay, we did a prayer to the technology god, so let's see if this all works. So in this as you can see on the screen now, is a traditional organizational structure. Here's the boss, all right? And this is actually organizational structure from one of our clients when we first started, well, just before we started working on this is what their business looked like. There was the managing director of the organization, and there were two other directors and a manager, but they all sort of reported through to the director, and then he also had his own team off to the side here. So he had his own team down here, and there was a director, and a manager in their organization, and he was the MD. Okay. And then each of the directors had their own teams, and the manager had a team, and then the managing director also had their own team as well. All right. And this is how. So in this organizational structure, Lisa, where does all the power exist in these typical hierarchical structures?
Well, that's a little bit paradoxical, Dave, because all of the power exists at the bottom, because they're the people that are holding all the intel and all of the knowledge and all of the info that the people at the top who think they're in power need to do the thing.
Okay. Where's all the authority held in this structure?
Thank you. At the top.
At the top. So the authority or the power is up here. And where's all the powerful information? The information, which, information is power, so share it, right? And that's interesting. Information is power, so hoard it. Used to be the way we used to think about things, because if I shared my information, then you might know more than me, and then you'll get promoted climb up the corporate ladder or the hierarchical chart further than I will. But where is all that really important intel or the intelligence and information held?
Yeah, kicking down at the other end of that.
Yeah. Because this is where most of the people down here are the ones who actually serve the customers.
Yeah.
And if we think about, the work that we do in the world where we want to help people evolve themselves and their businesses to stay relevant in the hearts and minds of people they choose to serve, and we look at that there, and one of the things we need to do is anticipate the future needs of our clients. Well, who's the people who speak to our clients every day?
Yeah, frontline, customer-facing folks, right. The ones not sitting on their porcelain thrones in the office.
Yeah. So when these guys have a meeting, for example, or anything like that, the problem with this structure is that power and information rarely coexist at the same table. Right. So and what happens here also is the people at the top here are making decisions about the work that's down here. So people involved in the work aren't involved in decisions about the work. And also in this sort of a structure, let's say this is you down here, Lisa, in the bottom right-hand corner. There's Lisa there, and she has this really great idea that may impact, this call it Bill over here in this team over here. How does Lisa in this structure get information to Bill over there? In your time in corporate things.
That's what I'm looking at it. I'm like, there's my life of the last 3.5 years before we got to play together. Yep, there it is.
So usually you would have to go tell your boss, I got this really great idea that might impact that team. Is go, why are you worrying about what they're doing? You should be worrying about what we're doing. And that great idea then will either get squashed, or your boss, let's call him Nick. Nick, your boss there. Nick goes, hey, to the other boss over here, that's to this boss, I got this really great idea that might really impact your thing. And he'll go, why the heck are you worrying about my thing? You should stick to your own thing. Don't tell me how to run my thing. And then Nick will go, hey, this is a really cool idea. Bill, you should be doing this. And then the MD goes, hey, mate, that thing you're doing is awesome. He goes, yeah, it was my idea. I just passed it through to my team and got them working on it. Now, I know I might be a little bit facetious, and that rarely would happen in many organizations, but it does happen.
It happens in other organizations, but it doesn't happen in any organizations that we play with, Dave. Just like stress.
Oh, no.
Stress is something that happens out in the world in other businesses. It doesn't happen in our business or any business that we work with at all, ever.
No, not even in our own. So what happens in this here is that it's what they call the chain of command, right? So when you, so this is when things have to go through the chain of command. We need a big voiceover again. The chain of command, right? That's what happens. I'll put my radio voice on. So this is when people have to work through the chain of command. And that really slows things down, because then even if it did go through and there was no credit ceiling and any of these sort of things that used to happen in organizations many years ago, it still takes a long time for that idea to get up and down and across and everything, for that person to be able to share that information. Why can't that person just go straight across to that person and discuss things? Right? Why can't that person say, hey, that's cool, we should also involve this person here and this person here and set up a mini talking circle about that thing and discuss that, and then go back. Because if we're all working for the greater good of the organization, the greater good of the whole organization, then it shouldn't matter who gets the credit, right? And so this is interesting because, you know, a lot of people use the word collaboration today. And so if you want to, we need more collaboration in our organization and all this stuff. We have all these hierarchies. So to me, most people just use collaboration as the new wanky word for teamwork, right? So they're just describing teamwork or working together and calling it collaboration because it sounds cool.
Yeah,
that's what cool kids are saying. But in this here, like this might be people working together, like through the chain of command. We're all going to work together eventually and stuff like that. But true collaboration is when logos and egos are off the table and no one gives a shit who gets the credit.
Yeah.
So that these guys up here wouldn't care less who, if it was this person, it doesn't matter who gets, none of it. It's all for the greater good. No one needs the credit. Let's just do it for the greater good, which is serving our clients at the highest level, which is our purpose in the first place. And also in this thing here, why it's an ecosystem, it says, I'm the boss, you report to me. Okay, boss-subordinate relationships all the way through this organization. Now, as we know in the work that we've been doing in the world, that today, not only we need new organizational models, but we need an organizational model that facilitates the ability for us to have coaches, not bosses. Because as we've discussed before, and I'll say it again here, our job as leadership is to help our people become the best version of themselves, to do their life's best work while in our care and beyond. And we want to help our people, therefore, become the greatest that they can be. If we want our organization to be the greatest it can be, we need to help our team become the greatest it can be. And you can't boss someone into greatness. We don't have the head boss, the offensive boss, the defensive boss, the special teams boss. We have the head coach, special teams coach, offensive coach, defensive coach in the biggest sporting organizations in the world. And in our organization, we need to start thinking more like that and have coaches, not bosses, because this is what people want. And you can't boss someone into greatness, right? You can bully them into higher performance for a short period of time, but eventually, guess what happens? People become immune to it. They go, whatever you want, say whatever you want. I'm just going to do what you need me to do. And right. And you can dangle incentives if you want to. And then people becomes either an expectation or the fact is only one person wins the incentive and everyone else gets demotivated. So we look at incentive or fear as a way to help people become a higher level of themselves. It's not sustainable. It's short term. And just once again, it just doesn't resonate with people in a long-term thing. So what we need to do is help them with their attitude, motivation, habits of thinking, is coach them to a higher level of thinking, which cause new behaviors and new results and new success. And this structure here does not facilitate that. It can work, but it doesn't facilitate it at the highest level. Like we've seen some people who force it, which is good. So anyway, so that's any thoughts or questions on hierarchies before we shift back to the circle of organizational leadership and I show you how it's different?
I think I'm good. If anyone has any questions at any time or they'd like to pop any comments in, please do that. And Dave and I see those and we'll address those live. So I think other than that, and the only other thing that I was going to say, Dave, is that organisations that make sense to people are more likely to have success in them. So if there's a way that we can have an ecosystem, not an ecosystem, that makes sense to us as humans, might that actually be a really cool thing too. So yeah.
Imagine if we structured organizations that were like human organizations that work like humans do.
Get out. Shut the back door. I did.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's important. And by the way, anyone watching this, if you'd like we have a little mini PDF workbook that we'll be giving at the end of this week on this whole topic we've been working on this week in all our socials and today's live. If you'd like a copy of it, just post into the comments on any of our feeds, #cool, the circle of organizational leadership, #cool. Okay, and we will make sure that you get a copy of the PDF workbook that goes through the two models. Lisa's just putting it up, I think, on the live stream now, which is awesome. So let's talk about. Oops. Let's talk about technology working for me. Oh, here we go. Come on. Here we are. So this same organization here that we had here, this same company, this is what it looks like now. Okay, so we, instead of having the one managing director at the top of the organization and the other two directors and the manager reporting to them, they now have this, what we call the circle of organizational leadership. So here's Bill, Mitch, Lucy, and Adam. Okay, Bill, Mitch, Lucy, and Adam. So Bill was the CEO or the managing director. Now the leadership team sits around a table, and Bill's job is to make sure every single person at the leadership table has a direct line of sight to the purpose through the lens of the values as they sit in their leadership circle. And they work on the corporate objectives of the organization, and Bill is the coach of that team. But each of those people in that team also have a unique strength that they bring to the team. Adam, for example, he's really good at systems and processes. Lucy's really great with people and culture. Mitch is really good at very methodical, like finance and administration, and Bill is big picture. So they have this really cool balance in their team, right? So they all bring this unique talent. So when it's something to do with the actual, say, the finance or the organization, the management of the organization, not the people, the management of the organization, well, Mitch will coach and lead that circle. So there's not one leader in the circle, right? Because this is all around leadership, not top-down leadership. And then when it comes to things to do with people and culture, well, Lucy leads that. When it's to do with systems and processes, Adam leads that, right? Because the best person to lead that or coach the team through those things is the one who steps up and does the coaching. Because leadership has, once again, is our definitions about helping people become the best version of themselves to do their life's best work while in your care and beyond. Nowhere in that definition does it say you must have a position or title to do that. And one of the things we help organizations do is build greater leadership depth and strength in their organization, right? So not depth in terms of layers, but depth in terms of in each person, helping them become a greater leader, because at any stage, someone else might need to be demonstrating the leadership in this particular thing. Because there's no point Bill leading the team on, let's say, systems and processes and automation if he has no clue about that stuff. When Adam is the guy who's all around that stuff. So why wouldn't he lead that thing or demonstrate the leadership in that moment and coach the team and bring them along, right? And so each person can bring their strengths. Because one of the other things we talk about, Lisa, is helping people bring their best self to work every day. So if I can bring my best self to work today, and then while I'm at work, you're going to help me become the best version of myself and do my life's best work, holy crap, what could happen? So this, I haven't even got to the other circles yet, but like that's just at the leadership circle, okay? So if you imagine this then, and I'll start with this one in the center here. Anyone remember King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table? See if I can move this over just a tad. There we go.
There was a really cool cartoon movie I watched about that when I was a kid. I loved it.
Right. There's the king's crown, right? There's the king. So King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. So King Arthur, when you look at the folklore, whether it's true or not, whether it was real or not is irrelevant. If you look at it just from a concept point of view, Arthur created a round table. So everyone is familiar with the famous Knights of the Round Table. Now, Arthur created this round table because one of his thoughts or philosophies or beliefs was that for men to feel like men, they must first be treated like equals. And so in this world today, for people to feel like people, like humans, we must treat them as equals. Well, but hang on, I'm the boss and I'm more important than you. And then, well, that's not treating people as equal. So everyone brings their greatest strengths and brings their best self to work in a culture where we're all treated as human beings. We're all equal as human beings. Now, everyone has different talents and abilities, responsibilities, roles, everything like that's cool. But we're all equal when it comes to being human beings. And it also created a circle of trust where everyone at that table knew they could trust each other because they could actually see each other face to face, eyeball to eyeball. And in the round table itself, carved around the edge of the round table was the code of chivalry of Camelot. So the code of ethics or the code of chivalry of how we must act as knights. So when you think about that, that's like your values. So this is how we think and act around here, right? So how we think determines how we act. So we have this code of chivalry carved into our table, and in the center of the table was Camelot. And the funny part is none of the knights got invited to a seat at the table until they'd already demonstrated that code of chivalry out in their adventures and journeys. And then they got invited in to be a knight at the round table. So when you think about recruiting people in your organization, they're saying, like, you don't get a seat at our table unless you can demonstrate that you lead, live, and love the way we think around here. Right? And then they would all sit around. And then what would happen is King Arthur would belly up to the table, remove his crown, and sit at the table as an equal. And his job as the coach of that table would be to facilitate dialogue so that the best idea won, not the king's idea. The best idea for Camelot, right? And then those knights then and knights were servants to their community. That servant, then knight servant, would turn around. So let's say Mitch here, he would turn around and go to he has his team, and he would then turn to his table and his round table and make sure everyone at his team had a direct line of sight to the purpose through the lens of the values. Right? And this is how their organization is structured now in cells. And then at any time, there can be, let's get this out of the way here. There could be a setup where this person from this team, they could create just a temporary cell, if you like, or where everybody, one person from each team needs to get together to talk about something, and they can all go off in a separate cell, and then they talk about things and then go back. So it allows the organization to expand and contract, move with the market, do anything that they want when they need to. So it's like fluid, right? So it's like water. Now, the important thing about this is, it creates an organization that's very fluid and like I said, as water. And what are we made up of as human beings, Lisa? 70% water?
Cake and water.
Right. And then if you look at the structure of us as human beings, how are we structured?
Cellularly,
right? So we have these cells. And what is at the center of every single cell?
Cake. Sorry. Nucleus. Yes.
A common nucleus, right? So the same nucleus is at the center of every cell. And all those cells work together to form the human being that is us today. The most complex organization in the world is made up of cells, and it all has a common nucleus. And that's all this is. This is set up just like us as human beings. So at the center of every cell, if you wish, is a common nucleus, the purpose. So this way we don't have vision, and which in most organizations held at the top, and then it dilutes and cascades its way down eventually like a champagne tower, and or more like what I would call Chinese whispers, where by the time it gets to the bottom, it's not exactly the same as what was said at the top. This way, the purpose and values sit at the center of every table. They sit at the center of every decision. Every idea gets filtered through those things, and everybody answers to those things before they answer to anybody else. And the person at the beginning of each of the circles is just the coach or facilitator of that circle, because they're the best person to coach that circle at that time on that subject matter or that topic or that objective or whatever it is that they're working on. There's no point having Lucy in this thing here be the visionary if she's not a visionary person and try to lead this visionary thing. Her job is to say, based on what Bill's vision of and his picture and what he's seeing of the big picture of the world and the network we want to build, here's what that means to people. And then she would lead that discussion around people. And then Adam would go, well, here's the systems and things that we need to consider. And this way we have all around leadership, not top down leadership. And this way everybody answers to something first, not to someone. And each of them then have their cells, and nobody is above anybody. That's how the circle of organizational leadership works. It builds trust. It allows you to handle conflict through the lens of those things. It allows you to have robust discussion, it allows the best idea to win. It doesn't put anybody above anybody in terms of human beings. And it allows you to coach your teams to achieve the objectives. So coaching teams to be the best so that they can do their best work.
Can I just speak to something that you just said, Dave, that I kind of got it on a new level? You said that our body, the human body, is like the most complex organization of cells and stuff and things that there is on the planet, right?
Yeah.
So if that's true, can you imagine if our heart or our brain or our left big toe went, no, well, now me and my structure and my purpose are more important than all the rest of you other things like kidneys, livers, pancreases and things that go on. So I now want everything to be about me. And then suddenly our cells don't now act in accordance with the greater good of the entire organism because the big toe just wants everything all for itself. So if our bodies as humans are just big organizations of cells, imagine what would happen in our bodies if that was the case. But do you know of somewhere, can you see of something where organizationally on a macro holographic level, why organizations in that hierarchical system aren't working, aren't serving a higher purpose, why they're disjointed, why they're not functional? Just the way that you said that, then it just dropped in and made sense on a new level. It's like, oh my gosh, yes, so true.
Yeah, awesome. What a great observation. Yeah, like and that's it. Like no one part is more important than the other. It takes all of it to all work together to be at the highest level. Yeah, you can work at a certain level without certain parts, but to perform at your highest level, yeah.
Like people say, it's about head and heart alignment. You know, heart's amazing on its own and so is the head. But when you get, it's like the culture and strategy alignment together with our powers combined, Captain Planet, eat your heart out, you know.
Yeah, 100%. So we're at 30 minutes. Like, wow, that time flew.
I know, it really did. You put 15 minutes in today's live in the calendar. I'm like, we're going to need way more than 15 minutes.
So just quickly, on the left, looks like a left to me, hierarchical structure, ecosystem. On the right, cellular setup or circle of organizational leadership, ecosystem. So everything works as an ecosystem. Everything works in harmony and works together for the greater good. Okay. If you want more information on that, you want to look, model it, you can play with for your own self. That's fine. Just drop hashtag cool in the comments, and we'll make sure you get a copy of the workbook by the end of the week. Just a simple PDF that you can look through and play with. It'll have all this sort of information in it. All right.
Hashtag cool, hashtag Dave. And further to that as well, the Inner Circle was published yesterday, and we talk a little bit more in depth about the whole notion between ecosystem versus ecosystem. There's some really interesting, thought-provoking brain juice in there this strong. So I encourage you to have a look at that as well.
Yeah, 100%. It was a great article, by the way, that you wrote too. Loved it.
Thank you. It was fun.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks very much for tuning in to Circle Leadership's live stream every week, every Thursday, live at 7:30 in our part of the world, whatever time it is in your part of the world. That's when it happens.
Oh, cool. All right, we're out.
See y'all.
Bye, everyone.